Hi, and welcome to Writing and Thriving for Visionary Writers with me, Sally-Shakti Willow. And I am very excited to welcome Amanda Walsh to our conversation today. Amanda has been writing her book, and I would love, Amanda, for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the book that's coming.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. And I am the founder of Astrology Hub, which is a global platform for astrology lovers to connect with very high quality astrology and astrologers for guidance and education. So, you know, learning how to ride the cosmic waves and also learning how to read charts if that's what you're interested in doing. The book that I'm writing is called Life by the Stars, and well, that I wrote actually. I'm done writing it. And it is a teaching memoir, and it in large part documents my journey from kind of the very Capricornian essence of building a empire, which is kind of what I spent the first 30 years of my life doing in New York City, building this sort of big uh, corporate thing, and then deciding to blow it all up essentially and find a path of heart and find a path of purpose and meaning. And so it documents my that journey that led to the building of the empire, then inspired me to move to Hawaii to kind of start all over. And then in Hawaii, finding astrology as really a guiding light and a guiding light that became extraordinarily important when my entire life fell apart after that move to Hawaii. And so, how it helped me on that journey to really navigate towards that life of purpose that I was craving when I was in New York, if that makes any sense. So, it's a teaching memoir in that it tells that story and documents it in vivid color. And then there's astrologer's notes that are overlaid. So you can understand what was happening astrologically in my chart to learn about your chart and to learn about your journey and your path. And so I'm really excited to be sharing it with the world at some point.
And so you, I mean, we worked together on your book. So I've had the enormous privilege of being one of the first readers of the book and working with you in that process. Um, you are also being extremely generous and vulnerable in sharing your chart and the astrology of your, as you said, these whole experiences in your life that were life forming, life changing, life transforming. That whole period of sort of crumbling and rebirth that you went through. And you share your chart and you share the astrology through the book to take readers on the deeper cosmic level of that journey with you. You have your life story that you're telling, and you have the guiding light of the stars that are very much present throughout that journey. So I would love for you to share with people the picture. What was it you were building up? What was this, and where does that come from astrologically for you? What were you building in that early part of your life?
Hmm. Well, yes, and it has been such a pleasure working with you. I mean, it was such an amazing, enriching experience, and I'm so grateful for all the contributions that you made to the book because there were some really key things that you helped me pull together, so it read well and all these things. So, well, essentially the way that I see it is I was playing and we kind of are, right? Like we have this astrological design, this blueprint. And and the way that I see it is it's like a sheet of music. And there's a range and there's a lot of choice and nuance in the way that we play that music, right? So like if you and I were both musicians and we had the same sheet of music in front of us, we could play it totally differently. Like maybe I'd go slow and sultry and you'd have a lot of pep and energy, but it could be the same music, right? And here's the thing. Our music in our astrological design isn't actually the same. Like we actually have two very distinct sheets of music and we're choosing how to play it. So the way that I look at it is the first 30 years of my life before my Saturn return, which is really a big trigger point for all of us. But leading up to that Saturn return, I was playing my design very archetypally, like very kind of stereotypically, although I was clueless about astrology. I didn't know I was doing that. But if you look back, it's like, oh my God, I was like textbook Capricorn, but kind of in, I don't want to say the lower frequency, but I do want to say the more socially programmed, less mature, and less less fulfilling, like ultimately, right? So I was playing out this design. Then the trigger point of the Saturn return, which for me was the birth of my first daughter, but that was like that coincided with my Saturn return. And that was this big, like, whoa moment of like, what am I doing with my life? And really seeing the trajectory of like, okay, if I keep going on this path I'm on, here's the end game. And I had like a lucid waking vision of that. And it was like, whoa. I mean, essentially, I saw myself as the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland, just like this kind of horrible person who has like all the material things you could ever want, but has no love, and especially like it's extreme estrangement from that daughter who in the moment was a baby, right? Then I got to see the other path. And the other path was less paved, less known, but colorful and alive. And I could feel that path. And it was like, oh, wow. But I knew that, like, in order to get on that path, I'd have to basically blow up the path I was on. So that was my Saturn return. And then Pluto came into my storyline as an archetype. And for me, Pluto, the Lord of the underworld, the one who invites us to, not invites, but demands that we look at the shadow elements of ourselves, came online in a big way. And see, this is the thing about the astrology and me sharing my chart. The point is for you to see that there are these trigger points in our lives where certain aspects come online and demand to be acknowledged. And when we do that, whether we're aware of the astrology or not, we get to experience deeper layers of ourselves and really, more energetic nuance of ourselves. And in that, we experience more fulfillment and peace and joy and all these things that we all want to experience in our lives. Okay. So, anyways, Pluto comes online. And for me, Pluto came alive as Pele, the goddess of the volcano, because I moved to the big island of Hawaii, her home. But Pele and Pluto are kind of the same. They they destroy, but they don't destroy for the sake of destruction. In the destroying is creation. Like it's an act that is happening at the same time, although it doesn't look like that and it doesn't feel like that while we're living it. It can feel very guttural and painful, and but it's the process of transformation. So the reason why I shared my chart and the reason why I brought the astrology in is because for me, it was so helpful. Once I had my first astrology reading, once I started to become aware of what was happening in my life, it gave me hope. It instead of it feeling random and chaotic and like all these bad things were happening to me and it was all piling up on top of each other, I got to realize that it was part of the design, that there was an end eventually. Like astrology really helps you understand like how long is this period of life going to last, which is so helpful. Like if you just feel like you're running a marathon and there's no end, it's so exhausting and you can get to the point where you're like, I just want to give up, right? Like this feels never ending. But what the astrology and the transits show you is like, no, this is a distinct period of time. And although I mean, it was distinct for me, but it was, I mean, every astrologer I went to was like, okay, you're going to be in this for years. However, they were able to paint the picture for what it could look like on the other side of those years if I decided to meet it and really use it as an opportunity to grow into a better, more aligned version of myself. So, is that's a really long answer to your very short question, but does that make sense? what I
Yeah,
just
it's a
said?
great answer. So you described what was happening around your Saturn return, and then you said
Yeah,
about Pluto coming in.
yeah,
I mean, I think that there are many women, especially many people in general, but many women especially, who will resonate with um, that timing of the Saturn return. So it happens when we're around 27 to 30 years old. What was happening in your life then? Because I know that a lot of women will resonate with that sort of, like you said, the building up of the structures. Saturn builds structures in our
yeah,
lives, and then we what happens at the Saturn return astrologically, and what happened in your life around that age that was specific to you.
yeah. Well, essentially, it's a maturation moment. And it's an integrity moment. And I don't mean integrity like moral, ethical. I don't mean it with any judgment. It's, are you on the path that you came here to walk? Or have you kind of gone off? Are you on a I truly believe that we come here for a purpose. We incarnate for a purpose. There are things we want to experience. There are gifts that we want to cultivate and share. There is, there is a, I mean, there's a mission that we sign up for. And so at that Saturn return, Saturn is very much like, I think of Saturn as like Yoda or like just that master teacher in your life who's like, kind of like snaps the whip and is like, "Hey, like get in line." And are you in line? And so how it showed up for me was this like, so I built this big empire. I was crushing it. I was like at the pinnacle of success in New York City, which to me felt like this metaphorical mountain to climb that like proved my value and worth in the world, right? And I was doing really well. But what happened around that time is the questions started to show up of like, is this what you came here to do? And I would hear these in like the quiet whispers, right? Like when you wake up early in the morning and the world isn't awake yet, and those thoughts start to creep in. And, in general, they were buried, but then they would surface, right? Is this what you're here for? Is this what life is really all about? Are you contributing anything worthwhile to the world? And they were unsettling these questions because deep down I knew the answer. Like, no, I wasn't. This wasn't what life is all about. And if it really was what life was all about, it was actually quite depressing because I wasn't truly happy at the time. I had all the material success, I had the wealth, I had the status, I had those things, but I wasn't happy, and I wasn't like sure that I was on the right path. Okay, so that showed up. And also, the desire to have a child. So I always knew I would have children. It was like, again, I feel like this is part of our karmic contracts. Saturn's very much about our karma. And so I had some contracts with some beings, and I knew that I needed to bring them through. And it was kind of like, okay, enough effing around. It's time to actually do that, right? So that is when I got pregnant. When I decided it was time, it was like, okay, it's time to have a child and start that phase of my life. And that I think I resisted. So I was 30 when I had Madeline. And I to this day I call her my great awakener because it was the birth itself and the process of birthing her that went way not according to my plan. That was the trigger point that started to wake me up and question a lot of things, not just the path I was on, but the institutions I trusted and the way that we're conditioned and programmed around birth itself, around health, around the body, around parenting, around schooling, all these things. It just like it triggered all of these questions in me and I couldn't not go down the rabbit hole. Yeah.
And those are the Saturn structures that you were questioning.
Yes.
The,
Yeah.
the external structures as well as your own internal structures that you'd been
Yes.
creating through your business, your marriage, your life up to that point. And I
Yes.
know in the book you mentioned this, you call her your great awakener. And there is an astrological aspect to that, isn't there? In the book, you look at your chart, but you're also looking at how one person's chart works in relation with other charts in the synastry. So tell us a little bit about that.
It's magical, you guys. I mean, this is the thing. Like, this is where, for me at this point, it's hard for me to not believe that there is an intelligent design behind all of it, right? Even the beings that we birth. And there are, to me, what I can see is that there's certain contracts. Again, so she came in to awaken me. The way that I look at it is she almost foregoed the the idyllic birth in order to wake me up. And then I got to have another very contrasting birth experience with my second daughter because I had such a challenging birth experience with Madeline. I chose a very different way with Sophia. And so, what you can see in the astrological charts and in the design is that there are, again, these trigger points that when people come into our lives, they are meant to awaken different aspects of us. And sometimes that's through very beautiful, loving, inspiring experiences. And sometimes that's through very challenging, painful experiences. And, but yeah, so you can see it. You can see it in the chart. You can see that she came in and her role was to wake mama up. And she did. And she does to this day. She's so good. She can like challenge me and bring some of my blind spots to the surface. She's 17 now, and it's too, but I love it. It's amazing because it gives me this like, wow, like thank you for playing that role in my life. Like you are crushing that role in my life. And thank you for that. And so it just helps us understand the people in our life and the design um and again, to me, it's the beauty and intelligence. I mean, the word cosmos means both order and beauty. Literally, the word breaks down to order and beauty. Like, what? That's amazing. So there is a purpose behind all of these different, and synastry is the astrological technique that can show you that can show, and help you understand the storyline behind the people in your life.
Yeah, so you dive into some deep astrology in the book, and we really talked about that. I was wondering, is this too complex for your
Yeah.
readers? And then, you really showed me that your readers have been they're at that frequency because they're the people who are in your community through Astrology Hub and through the teachings and the interviews and the membership and everything that you've created through your relationship with astrology, and that you've now rebuilt new structures in your life and in the world that are based on your understanding of astrology and bringing people together through astrology that gives people not only the education but brings together a community of resonance in that frequency field where people are open to these higher and deeper levels of astrology that you put into the book. So I would say it is and it isn't a book for beginners. Beginners can enjoy the story and they can follow
Right.
the astrology along, and then learn more. And then
Mhm.
it's also a book that takes readers on really a much deeper journey than almost pretty much any other astrology book that I'm aware of. So how did the book land with you initially? Because it was already part formed by the time you brought it to me. You already had this clarity and this structure. How did that come through for you?
Hmm. Well, it's not the book I thought I was going to write. So I thought what I sat down to write, excuse me, was I was going to tell my story briefly. And then I was going to go into ways that you can begin to work with astrology in your life. And I was going to do that based on the solstice and the equinox and the zodiac archetypes and this whole thing. I had it all like I thought I was almost done with the book. But the book coach that I worked with right before you, I gave her all my materials and I'm like, "Ah, I'm like halfway done with this book." Like, she read everything and then she came back to me with a challenge. And she said, "Amanda, I want to challenge you to write your story in a way that you have never told it." And at first, my heart sank because I was like, oh God, like basically, she's saying I'm starting at zero. Like, I don't have a book halfway written. But there was something in me that was like, ooh, okay. how do I do that, first of all? And what happened was so surprising and so delightful. It started to flow through me and started to read like a fictional story. Like dialogue came in and like really clear descriptions of the places where I was and the conversations I was having, even though I didn't even know that I remembered those things. But once I started to write, it all started pouring through. And it's kind of like, to me, a little bit of proof of like Akashic records or, some sort of record that I wasn't aware that I was logging as I was living the experiences, right? So it started to come through in this story form. And then it was clear that it was a whole book itself. It was like I couldn't force that into 50 pages. And literally I would be on walks and it'd be like I would remember a story that I lived and it'd be like, write that one. And then write this story and write that story. And it was like, whoa. So it was very much a process that I've never done that before, but it happened. And then I reached a point where there was a conundrum. The conundrum was that for the first 33 years of my life, I was clueless about astrology. So, how would I tell a story from my vantage point that included the wisdom of astrology that was so clearly alive as I was living these things now in retrospect? But how could I keep it authentic? And that was when, again, I was on a walk and I was like, oh, what if I invited Natasha Alter, who is the woman who gave me my first astrology reading, who like blew my world wide open, and we're still friends to this day. What if I asked her to provide those astrological reflections on the things like I was in my Saturn return when I was having those awakening questions, and so, but I knew Sally-Shakti. I mean, my whole thing with astrology the whole time has been what I thought astrology is for those first 33 years of my life. I thought it was kind of not very intelligent and really woo-woo and ungrounded and not very helpful. But then I have that first astrology reading and I go, whoa, like, how come nobody knows this is what astrology is? Like, this is amazing. I still was clueless about it, but it really opened my eyes to how deep it can go and how helpful it is and how intelligent it is and how beautiful and how loving. And so from the very beginning of starting Astrology Hub 10 years ago, it has been so important to me that people get to experience that. So, like, even if they don't understand the language yet, they can feel the depth and they can feel and they can experience for themselves how truly helpful it can be when done right and when done with compassion and when done with intelligence, because it can be so abused, it can be so misused, it can be so and to me when that happens, it's not that helpful, and I get it. Sometimes it's just entertaining and fun and light. And I'm not actually opposed to that because it can be like we can laugh at ourselves, right? But at the same time, I wanted people to experience through my story that, like, wow, this can be something that can really help me navigate through some of the most challenging, some of the most gut-wrenching, some of the most deeply human moments of our lives. And I really wanted to illustrate that, not talk about it, not tell you that, but let you experience that through my story. And so I'm excited because like it doesn't, I hope that people can feel that. And from some of the early readers, it seems like it's happening that way. So I hope that people can have that experience themselves and only really for the end goal of showing you that like this can be really helpful for you too. No matter how you decide to engage with it, it can really help you if you want it. Not everybody's here to have that be the thing that helps them through. But for me, it was so profoundly helpful. So I wanted to illustrate that for other people.
Absolutely. And then when as we worked together, we were really starting to shape that part of the journey, the reader's journey.
Yeah.
Because often when writers come to me, they're very immersed in their own story, which is obviously where you are when you're writing a book. And then we open that perspective together of well, how is your reader traveling along with you now? And for me, when a book there are stages of writing that are very alchemical. And so when you're writing and you're getting these downloads and you're writing the story, you're reliving those moments, you're reflecting on the astrology, and you've got Natasha's wisdom reflecting on that as well. And it brings aspects of your experience into a coherence, which obviously the astrology was doing for you as well. And these things are happening internally as well as externally. Like I have a sense that as a writer, we're being restructured
Hmm.
as the book is moving through us. It's like this internal restructuring of who we are and who we're here to be and what we're stepping into next through this book and through what the book brings into the world and asks of us, requires of us. So one of the things we were looking at is how is your reader walking alongside you on this journey as the book becomes a physical product, a product in the world that is suddenly not just your story anymore, but it belongs to a wider audience. How does that
Yeah.
all resonate and feel for you?
Oh, it resonates deeply. And one of the things I I wanted to make sure to do was to really call out or illuminate the scripts that were running in the background of my consciousness throughout all these different phases of life. So the building part, the getting to Hawaii and like getting exposed to all these like amazing like mystical characters, that's what it felt like to me, to like the breakdown through my divorce and becoming having two young children and being on my own and the financial like challenges that came as a result of that and all the thing. I wanted to really illuminate that quiet script that is running, I think, collectively for all of us. And I wanted to just bring it to the surface and show like, look, we all carry some of this in us. We're all grappling with some of these programs that have been kind of, I see them as like they're like come installed with the software, the hardware of our design. So you're not alone in that. And it's okay to have those. And it's also okay to become aware of them and to begin to like question them and transcend them and alchemize them within yourself, right? So I wanted to bring them along that very real journey that I went through. And so for them to feel like, look, like I'm not alone. Like I thought that was only me. I thought that was only me that like had these doubts and questions and like thought I was wrong and thought I was, all these things, right? Um, and so then it's basically I wanted to bring them along that journey. And then I also wanted to very clearly be like, if you want to go deeper into any of these aspects, into any of these places within you, here's how you do that. And I've read so many books where I'm like, great, that's awesome. I just got so excited about that. But like, now what? Like, how do I go deeper with this? So I wanted to make that very easy for people. And is that answering your question?
Yeah, this is great. Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you have,
Okay.
did you want to go further with that?
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's just at every point of the story, I wanted it to feel like I don't know, I had this vision like even in the very beginning of my unraveling when I moved to Hawaii and throughout 2012, which is where a lot of like some of the big awakening parts started to happen, and then 2013 to 2015 when my life totally fell apart. I had this sense that if I could navigate that time, and actually the astrology was reflecting this to me. And so, I also got this confirmed from the astrology of that time that if I could navigate it and if I could come out the other side of it, not only surviving it, but thriving through it and being a better version of myself through it, that someday I would be able to like put my hand out and offer that hand to others who are in the next wave of awakening. And now that we look at what's happening in the world globally since 2020, essentially, like there are waves and waves of consciousness that is coming online. And that process is really disorienting. It's it feels like the foundation of your life is just crumbling. Or like I use the metaphor of the lava and the volcano in the book a lot because that's what it felt like this lava, like this volcano completely erupting and destroying my life, you know? But again, just keeping those archetypes in mind, it's like, yes, it is, but it's also making room for something entirely new. And I love the placeholder of Hawaii as paradise because these islands are created by that act of destruction, but the end result of it is a place that people all over the planet recognize as paradise. So we have that. We have that available to us as these different structures are falling apart and getting, completely destroyed by the lava of what's happening in the world. But we all have this opportunity, if we seize it, to create something even better than what was here before. So again, I wanted to take people on that journey, both very personally, metaphorically, astrologically, to just, give them a lot of hope and inspiration for their own paths.
Absolutely. And, we were speaking just before we started recording, and I know that you're waiting for the right astrological moment to actually release the book into the world. And part of that feels like it's that collective journey of awakening that you were speaking about that will bring the frequency of your book into being on the planet when exactly at the moment when it's needed. And you already have a huge community of people who will be ready to read that and wanting to read that and sharing it with their friends. And and really that book will be part of this next wave of great awakening. So as we are coming towards the end of our conversation, my final question to you is, at this stage that you're at, so your book is complete and it's on the precipice of being launched. At this stage, how would you say that writing the book has changed you?
Oof. Oh my gosh, it's countless, endless. I should make a list at some point. Um, well, what you said earlier about the alchemy that's happening, there's certain parts of my story that even though I would say I was absolutely speaking from the scar, not the gaping wound. I've already done a lot of processing around the story, but there were a lot of things to consider in terms of like, what's the most compassionate way to tell the story, where it will like land with the reader, but also like respecting the privacy of people that were involved. And there was just so many different elements to consider. And then I remember like when I was in the process with you, it was so much about like getting it done on some level, like finishing the book and polishing the book and editing the book and proofreading the book. And then once it was clear that like I was almost done with that, there was this moment of like, oh my God, people are going to actually read this. And like, how do I feel about that? Like I hadn't even thought about that too much because I was really in the process of the creative process of writing it. And then it was like, oh my God, like this is a really vulnerable book. I'm going to be very exposed. It's almost like deciding that you're okay standing naked in front of everybody. Like all the lumps, all the wrinkles, all the like, all of it. And just being like, okay, I guess I'm gonna do that. Um, so that was a big phase on its own. Just like, how do I feel about that? Am I okay with that? And what about the fact that I'm gonna stand there naked and there's gonna be people being like, oh my God, I don't like that. I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't like what I'm reading. So there's been all those phases, and I absolutely have become someone on the other side that is just, I've had to affirm my why so many times. Like, why am I even doing this? Like, what is the point? And really just come more into alignment with, like, well, I don't know why I'm doing this actually, but I know that I need to. And it has haunted me since 2019, at least. And so I just need to do it. And I need to trust that why I'm doing it will maybe someday be obvious, but might not ever be obvious. And that's okay. It's just part of my path. And like, stop taking yourself so seriously. Because at the end of the day, who cares? Like, I just know I need to do it and I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to trust that what unfolds after that will also be part of the path that I'm walking, will also be part of the thing that my soul came here to experience. And that's not always pleasant. It sometimes can be really painful. But that's okay. I will get through it. I will live through it and I will be better for it. I know that because I've just decided that that's true. So yeah, I mean, I literally should make a list. I love that question.
And what I'm feeling when you're responding to that question is just this deeply embodied like pillar of grounded, heart-centered leadership.
Hmm. Well, that was one of the things that became very clear through recounting the stories in the book that I had been searching for something like that for I don't know how many lifetimes, but that it's how do I do leadership in a new way? That it doesn't look like the way I've done leadership probably many, many times in many lifetimes, that I came to the end of that going, that doesn't work actually. Nobody is better off for that kind of leadership. So, what is a new way of doing leadership? And that's been a journey in and of itself. So, thank you for that reflection because I didn't think of it that way before you said it. So, thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Amanda, we could speak for ages, and I'd love us to do a part two when the book comes out. Please, for now, as we just complete, tell people where they can find you.
Okay, well, you can definitely go to Astrology Hub. We have a podcast, we have a YouTube channel. Um, but also, if you want to follow along on my book journey, where I do share still some reflections as I'm getting to book launch period, and you can get a free chapter from the book, and if you'll get to experience the astrologer's notes and get a good feel for the book. That's free too, of course. Lifebythestars.com for that. So you can just sign up to get my reflections in the process and then also get that book chapter. And then if you want to like dive into the astrological part, find me at Astrology Hub. And YouTube is where we put a lot of our energy, Instagram. Yeah, and it's the Astrology Hub podcast on YouTube.
Fantastic. It's a great podcast. I highly recommend it, especially to all my listeners as well who love astrology and energy work. Thank you so much, Amanda. We'll make sure that those links end up in the show notes, and people can find me at writingthriving.com and also on Substack at Writing Thriving. It's been super to speak to you today, Amanda, and I really appreciate the generosity of your energy, your time, your presence, and your story. It's just so powerful to see this new new energy of leadership coming into the world.
Hmm. Thank you so much. And you were absolutely instrumental in how the book took form and shape in the end. So thank you for that. And it wouldn't be the same if you hadn't come into my life. So thank you.
Thank you, and I can't wait to see it too.